Renaissance Graphic Design, Chapter 7. Why did the Renaissance begin in Florence? Well, it was a city of great wealth during this period, among a growing middle and upper class of merchants and bankers. And with wealth came a focus on the pleasures of life, not just the hereafter. Florence believed it was the kind of place where individual freedom was guaranteed, and many citizens were part of the government. They imagined Florence a new Rome and were ready to sacrifice for the cause of freedom and liberty. A remarkable group of young artists and intellectuals, supported by the patronage of the Medici family, began to create new ways of seeing and thinking that were radically different from the past. Renaissance Southern European typographic books have Roman letter-based fonts, line illustrations, white space as a design element, and classical motifs, light borders, acanthus leaves. In this chapter, we will travel to Florence, Venice, and Rome. I've been lucky enough to live and work for a short time in two of these extraordinary cities, and I can tell you it's living a dream for many artists and designers. We start our journey with Nicholas Jensen, and this is a piece that he created in 1470. A new standard of excellence was established with wider letter forms, a lighter tone, and a more even texture of black strokes on the white ground. This mark is also attributed to Jensen, and it's for the Society of Venetian Printers in 1481. One of man's oldest symbols, the orb and the cross motif, is found in a chamber of the pyramids at Giza, where it was hewn into stone as a quarry mark. In Jensen's time, it symbolized the idea that God shall reign over the earth. Design inspires and informs design. Here we see two additional examples of the orb and cross. The orb and cross in the first example was designed in the town of Ferrara, located about 90 kilometers southwest of Venice. On the right, we see a mark by Per Miguel. Dozens of Incubabla printers adopted the orb and cross mark, and Miguel worked in Barcelona, Spain. Here we see the work of Erhard Rathold, Lösslin, and Meyer, and it's a title page for Calendarium. It's from 1476, and the title and author are identified in verse describing the book. A grid of metal rules brings order and legibility to this record of past and future eclipses on the right. More work from Euclid's Geometry. The wide outer margin is maintained throughout this book of explanatory diagrams. We have two sizes of initial letters denoting sections and subsections. And this piece is also done by Rathold, Lösslin, and Meyer. A dazzling white on black design brackets the text on the right, and incredibly fine line diagrams in the wide margin visually define Euclid's terms. This is an amazing piece from the Calendarium in 1476 by the same trio, and the two top circles are printed on heavy paper, cut out and mounted over a larger woodcut with tape and string. This may be the very first die cut and manual tip-in that is graphic material in a printed book. This is the work of Giovanni and Alberto Alvise, and it's a title page from Ars Moriendi in 1478. The vocabulary of graphic design possibilities was expanded by the design and casting of metal decorative ornaments that could be composed as part of the page along with type. This is a manuscript book, and it is freely drawn on the left side in brown pen and ink. The illustrations then have brown and ochre washes applied. On the right, we see the same image when it was printed by Johannes Nicolai de Verona, and we see that detail and gestural line quality are lost in the printed translation from manuscript printed volume, but the basic layout really remains the same. From 1500, here's a beautiful printer's trademark from Aldus Manutius. The swiftest of sea creatures combines with an anchor to signify the epigram which says, "Make haste slowly." On the right, we see a typographic page he created in 1499. The texture of the headings set in all capitals, the text typography, and the outline initial have a subtle but a beautiful contrast. The one-line intervals of space separating the information into 3 areas introduces light and order into the page. As the Italian Renaissance began to fade as a result of the sack of Rome in 1427, the cultural vitality of the Italian Renaissance was imported to France. Under the patronage of Francis I, the French Renaissance flowered as he provided generous support to humanist authors and visual artists. In spite of war and censorship, the humanist spirit took hold in France and produced both excellent scholarship and a notable school of book design. The leading French printers produced books of fine proportions, great legibility and beautiful type, as well as elegant ornamentation. They eliminated the dense claustrophobic page layout and heavy Gothic typography, and this led to a new open, lighter style. Here's an example from Henry Estienne, and among the leaders in France during this period, he and his son, Robert Estienne, along with Simon de Coligny, Geoffrey Torrey, Claude Garamond, and Arantxe Fine, developed many outstanding page layouts. Basel and Lyons developed into major centers for graphic design, due in large part to the efforts of Johann Froben. So here we see a title page from Aristotle's Metaphysics in 1515. By setting the type in geometric shapes, Estienne achieved a distinctive graphic design with minimal means. Here's a title page he did for a Bible in 1540 on the left. As with many printer's marks of the era, Estienne's olive tree with a branch falling off became a pictorial illustration. And on the right, we see another page he created where the headings are set in 1 line of letter space capitals and 2 lines of lowercase. Geoffrey Torrey created this capital for a series of Crible initials in 1526. He did the podcast emblem in 1524, and later he explained that the broken jar symbolized one's body, the torrid of augurs symbolized fate, and the book held shut by 3 padlock chains signified the book of a life after it's shut by death. On the far right, we see pages from a manuscript book. The frontispiece and 40 vignettes have orderly rows of the Latin alphabet's 23 letter forms over a blue field with red and white stripes. Here's another piece from Geoffrey Torrey, Hours of Our Excellent Virgin Mary. It's from 1541, and a set of border components filled with plant and animal motifs are combined and recombined throughout the book. The open line quality facilitates the application of color later by hand. Take a look at this fantastic alphabet from Champfleury he created in 1529. The 13 alphabets concluding this book, Hebrew, Greek, Persian, and so on, included this whimsical sequence of pictorial letter forms that are composed of tools. For example, the A is a compass, the B is a fusee, which is a steel used to strike a flint to start a fire. The C is a handle. Here's the work of Simon de Colonnes from 1536 on the left. The type is surrounded by an illustration that takes great liberties with natural scale and perspective to create a really joyous interpretation of the bounty of Earth's flora. On the right-hand side, we see the title page for a book about arithmetic. It uses carefully measured strap work. Symbolic figures represented different areas of knowledge and a crible background. His typography combines with this border to really create a masterpiece of Renaissance graphic design. Here's the work of Johann Froben and Hans Holbein. It's a title page for Sir Thomas More's Utopia from 1518. It's very complex in image and tone. This title page unites the typography with the illustration by placing it on a hanging scroll. This is a title page created by Robert Grandjean for the first book of Fabulous Stories. The script letter forms are Grandjean's own, and they were used for the entire text of this 127-page book. The serpent device elegantly is bracketed by the motto in Roman capitals, and that's Grandjean's trademark. A conflict between French troops and a Reformed church congregation ended in a massacre, which began 4 decades of religious wars that effectively ended the golden age of French typography. Just as the momentum for innovative graphic design, though, had moved from Italy to France, it now passed from France into the Low Countries, especially the cities of Antwerp and Amsterdam. Books became an important export commodity to this very mercantile and seafaring nation. Dutch, English, French, German, and Latin books were printed and then exported throughout Europe. Their handy and practical little volumes had solid, legible Dutch type, surrounded by economically narrow margins and featured engraved title pages. Copperplate engraving grew in popularity and soon replaced the woodcut as the major technique for graphic images throughout Europe. The Netherlands found its greatest printer in Christophe Planten, who you see pictured on the left. Here's a title page he created in 1567. It's dignified and very architectural. This title page is typical of the Planten house style. Many of the Dutch types during the 17th century were designed by the great Dutch designer and punch cutter, Christoffel van Dyck. Here's a Typefounder's sheet to show you some of them. The 17th century was a quiet time for graphic design innovation. There was an abundant stock of ornaments, punches, matrices, and wood blocks from the 1500s widely available, so there wasn't much incentive for printers to commission new graphic materials. Printing came to the North American colonies by way of Stephen Day, and just as it had hurled Europe toward the Protestant Reformation during its early decades, printing pushed the American colonies toward revolution. Stephen and Matthew Day created this title page on the right for the whole book of Psalms in 1640. In the title typography, we see a rich variety that's achieved by combining 3 type sizes, using all capitals, all lowercase, and italics to express the importance and the meaning of the words.